We're still looking at the ASUU strike. University students have been at home since for over 4 weeks now due to the ASUU strike. The only losers in these strikes are the students and their parents. And questions are being asked. Can't ASUU think of a different way of seeking redress for its grievances without inflicting collateral damage on students, parents, and the country as a whole? Your reaction, please.
Yeah, it's always easy to ask that question. I mean, the same question is also asked about the NLC and different unions in the country whenever they want to proceed on strike. It's also asked about the Nigerian Medical Association. It's also asked about virtually every organization. But the reality is that that question has already been answered several times, because there are various steps that lead to strike, and strike is always the very last action, the very last. So what the ASUU does, for instance, in this kind of circumstances, that when there is a disagreement with the government, the employers are the owners of university. When they believe that the government has not lived up to its responsibility, they alert the government. Over the years, they write series of letters to the government. They engage in discussions with the government. They highlight all of these issues, and then also talk about the implications of the government not living up to its responsibility, because there are greater implications. The implication is beyond the lecturers. After all, there is a saying that soldier come, soldier go, soldier come, the barrack remains. So ultimately, some of these lecturers will leave the stage. Either some would have left and maybe gone to other institutions, or perhaps even gone out of the country, or some leave the stage out of natural causes when they have done, fulfill their life's commitments, and maybe they die off. So they are no longer there, but the university system remains the same. The country remains the same, because the university system is supposed to be servicing the educational needs, and then the foundation of the country's development. That is what it's supposed to do. Yeah. And so, then like I said, the strike option is usually the very last, and it is the most painful. Nobody wants to go on strike. And we must make this very clear, whether you are talking about the Nigerian Medical Association, you're talking about, unions, the various unions, they don't want to go on strike because there are obvious implications for this strike. First of all, they're going to stay at home. They are going to be for people who are very active. You can imagine a situation where, and people don't tend to look at these things, where they have to stay at home doing nothing for 2 months, for 3 months, and so on. So it's not just the students that it affects. It affects the lecturers also, because they have nothing to do, nothing serious to do for that period. And then again, the difficulty of keeping a strike, the strike forces united, is always very difficult, because, I mean, human beings being what they are, there's always that tendency that they might have one or two disgruntled elements, complaining about, how long the strike has gone and all that. And then again, the fear of even the government trying to sabotage the strike. So it's always there. The government would always have their agents, and they have, done several times, they have tried to, hijack or sabotage, strikes in the past. So, I don't know of any other way. Perhaps, you see, for people who are doing this criticism, who are saying that perhaps ASUU should look for other means. You see, there's something called constructive criticism. When you criticize, you provide a solution. So can these people kindly give us a solution? Can they kindly provide, what they think, ASUU should be doing, rather than going on strike?
Now, comrade, sorry to cut you, but the questions have also been raised. Has these strikes been productive? From your perspective, these strikes have, there have been series of ASUU strikes. The questions still beg, have they been productive in your own views?
I think it's a very good question, and a very objective question from you, because these are the feelers you're also getting from, I believe, from the outside. Have they been effective? Have they been productive, and all that? And I will tell you that they have not been as effective and as productive as ASUU would have liked. That is in terms of turning around the university system, making the university system, taking it back to its glory days. Don't forget again that people will tell you that we used to have a very effective and productive university system where people from all over the world, from Cuba, from Europe, from virtually all over the world would come to Nigeria, either to school in some of our universities or to teach in some of our universities. So those were the glory days of the university system. And so over time, that has been undermined by the rot that has set in, over the years. And it is this rot that ASUU has consistently tried to address. And I will tell you why I believe it has been, effective, maybe not as effective, as the proponents of the strike would have wanted. I tell you that I will say emphatically that the entire university system in this country would have collapsed if not for some of these strikes that have been going on completely. So people should also look at the opportunity cost. People should also look at, the fact that what you have now, the little credibility that you have within the university system is a credibility that is based on these attempts by ASUU to maintain the integrity of the university system. If you look at the level of rot in the system, if you look at, what was discovered after the needs assessment, of all the universities in the country, you realize that we're in a very precarious, very dangerous situation. People are talking about, I remember the first time Okonjo-Iweala talked about graduates not being able to be employable in this country. That seems to be a very annoying statement from the woman, but to a very large extent, it is true. But you can imagine what would have happened if we did not have this attempt to get the federal government to revitalize the university system, to get the federal government to try to get the lecturers, the few remaining patriotic lecturers, to remain in this country. So we cannot, it is not a win-win, and that is what I want to emphasize on. When you run down educational institutions in this country, the country suffers, the country loses. It's not just the lecturers that are losing, but the greater loss is to the country. Because the basis of national development, the basis of progress for every society, every country is education. No wonder when Bill Gates came to Nigeria and the journalists confronted him and asked him what are the most important sectors, what sectors does he think are the most important sectors that are critical for a country's education, for a country's development and advancement. He said two. He said healthcare. The second was education. And if you look at both, education is even more important than healthcare. The reason why he talked about healthcare is because you need to look, we already have a situation on ground where the health infrastructure of the country has to be improved upon because the people already are dependent on it. Education is for the now and the future. And so it is education that produces those people that participate effectively in producing proper healthcare for the citizens of this country. It's education. So education is the mother of all development in any country, whether it's in the field of sciences, whether it is in the arts, whether it's in every human endeavor you can think about. Education is key. Education is the reason why China is where it is today. Education is key where India, especially at the level of information, ICT, is doing extremely so well. Education is the key why the United States has done, very well. In so many, circumstances and all of that. 15 of the 20 best universities in the world are all based in the United States. So as much as China has advanced in so many fields, you see a lot of these Asians coming to the United States to take education and to go back to develop their country. The tragedy of the Nigerian situation is the fact that, Africa is the destination for investment in the entire, universe. It is very clear, and Nigeria has a role to play in that. In fact, it has been said that in the next 50 years, the whole world will be looking up to Africa, for development and to maintain world stability at the economic level and other levels. And that is essentially because of the burgeoning African population. We have a population. Most of the countries that are thriving today are thriving on the basis of the populations that they have. Not just the population, because population can also be inimical to national development. But population is beneficial to national development when the productive force of the country is put, when the youths who constitute a large, workforce of the country are put into, use to produce for the country. So these are some of the things, and that's why I'm saying that if not that ASUU had been making all of these interventions, no matter how debilitating it has been, the fact that there is any shred of credibility in our educational system is down to the, to the insistence on ASUU that the right thing should be done. They came up with a TED fund, the TED fund that has benefited the university, because it was one when the government was asking them to provide a solution to proper funding of the university system, that they came up with a TED fund. And that TED fund has been able to do so much. Unfortunately, sometimes the government, the federal government, lays his hand or dips his hand into the TED fund and uses the TED fund for means, other than they were, it was meant for in the very first place.
Now, let's look at the government's reactions so far with regards to the strike action. ASUU had actually says that it will continue this rollover strike for another 8 weeks in order for the federal government to address the issues in concrete terms. And they stated that they were disappointed that the government did not treat the matters involved with utmost urgency during the 4-week period as expected of a reasonable, responsive, and well-being administration. Why is the government, the federal government, not really proactive with regards to meeting the demands of ASUU?
I will tell you, I will just give you a simple answer, I think, from the scriptures. It says that where a man's treasure is, there his heart will be. The treasures of these politicians are not in Nigeria. They are in foreign universities, and so it is key. It's like the issue of cultism that we have in educational institutions, and then this incessant lockdowns of a university system due to strikes by ASUU. If the children of the rich, of the privileged, especially the political class, the elites, were here in Nigeria, our educational system will function. Because that is where their treasure is. So they're going to put their money there to ensure that their children are safe and to ensure that their children have qualitative education. So what does that tell you about the nature and character of our political elites? They are extremely very selfish. They are unpatriotic. They are not nationalistic, and so that's why it's one of the most progressive bills, that I have ever come across, seen in the National Assembly, is the one that was proposed by Sergio Ogun, a member of the Federal House of Representatives. And what was the bill all about? It was about banning elected public office holders from sending their children abroad.
Exactly.
But of course you will know, we all know what happened and why that happened. They are not going to allow it to happen because, you see, this is a political class whose primary motivation and proclivities are self-centered. They are always thinking about themselves, how to advance their own personal agenda, how to, fulfill their motivation for self-aggrandizement. And so they are not going to allow it to happen. But if they had allowed it to happen, they are going to ensure, because their children are there, they are the ones that are going to appropriate money. Even if the federal government, for instance, submits a budget on education, on improving education in the country, and they know that it's not going to be enough, they are going to pad it. Of course, that they are used to padding for selfish interest, but they are now going to pad that education, budget for national interest. That's what they would have done. And so this is the reason. So there's no compelling motivation for them to be uncomfortable. Parents are uncomfortable that their children at home. They don't like it. And of course, they say if you do not occupy idle hands, that the devil will find work for such hands. So parents are also worried about the social consequences of keeping their children at home, apart from the frustration and all that. But the politicians are not worried because the children are not here. So this is the real reason they are not, and I must emphasize this, that the country is the way it is today. Nothing is working. We have just been told by by executives of some of the airlines that in the next few days, by Thursday, all airlines in the country will be grounded.
Hmm.
We have just been, we have, I mean, and there are all kinds of, social malaise. So it is essentially, these things are happening essentially because there is no sense of patriotism. There is no sense of duty and responsibility by our political office holders. Is it not embarrassing? Ask yourself, how many countries in the world, and I'm not just, let's not even go to the advanced countries of the world, in Africa here, in West Africa, and the rest of Africa, how many of these countries do you have lecturers of tertiary institutions going on strike as often as lecturers in Nigeria go on strike? Not because the lecturers do not want to work, but because the government is not interested in doing the right thing. It is in this country, and I'll give you concrete, a reason. It's in this country about a week or 2 weeks ago, the federal government of Nigeria gave $1 million to Afghanistan. Afghanistan is over 6,000 miles away. It is of no geopolitical interest to the Nigerian nation. Nigeria as a country has been Afrocentric right from inception of independence. Our primary, geopolitical focus or geopolitical interest is the African continent. So what is the connection between us and Afghanistan? With all the poverty in the country, with all the, I mean, Nigeria being a poverty capital of the world, they say India has just overtaken Nigeria and all that, but that's just in, but if you look at it in terms of quantity over population, Nigeria still remains the poverty capital of the world. This is a country that borrows money to service his debt. This is a country that borrows money to prepare his budget. This is a country where we've been told about 80 to 90% of his debt is now, being paid from the country's budget. So what do we have for capital expenditure? And this country is giving Afghanistan $1 million. Is this not criminal? Is this not a crime? Is this not morally offensive to the Nigerian state itself and to the Nigerian people? Don't forget also that Nigeria, I think in 2017 or was it 2019, when ASUU was on strike, this same country, approved a whopping sum of 1.9 billion naira to extend the railway line from Kano to Maradi in Niger State. In Niger State, what is the significance of Niger? Of what economic value is Niger to Nigeria? So you see a country, Nigeria, a country that is being run as a fiefdom, as the property of certain individuals. When they wake up and they feel good about certain things, they ensure that it is done. And they always feel good about those things that satiate their personal interest, their primordial interest. They never feel good about what to do to improve the lot of the Nigerian people. And that's why the country is in a morass. That's why our investing system keeps on shutting down.
Now, I know your organization, the Joint Action Front, had thrown its weight behind the ASUU strike. In fact, in one of the recent statements, which I quote, JAV supports all the demands of ASUU, including the demand for the adoption of the University Transparency and Accountability Solution, as opposed to the corruption and fraud-induced payment system called Integrated Payroll and Personnel Informative System that the federal government imposed on the university system. Now, the question some have asked is, why is ASUU not offering help in correcting the lapses it observed in the IPs, that is the government's Integrated Payroll and Personnel Information System, instead of insisting on the special platform for university staff alone?
Again, a very, very good question. And but it's clear, the IPs that you just talked about is an invention of either the World Bank.
World Bank, yeah.
Yes, of the World Bank. It's a payroll system, but it's a payroll system that has the civil service bureaucracy in mind. And then, the civil service virtually in all parts of the world are essentially the same structurally. If you have a few differences, it will be very minute differences. And so there's a structure that payroll systems should follow. And so this payroll system it was essentially designed to take care of salary structure and allowances and all that within the civil service bureaucracy. The university system is not a civil service bureaucracy. This is what we must emphasize, and that is the truth, that is the reality. It is completely different from a civil service structure. And so because within the university system, you have all kinds of, also many other, things that come up. You have, I think some of the things that the lecturers are talking about. You have, specific kinds of allowances, that are based on, teaching. For instance, you have these exchange programs between universities. You could even have a university abroad bringing in, lecturers here. You have lecturers from here going there and all of that, and then the kind of integrated payment system that the university system operates is a completely far cry from what the IPs provides and offers. And so sometimes you have a situation where, talking about architecturally now, talking about, for instance, a particular building that somebody wants to renovate, you bring in a professional. And what it tells you is that there's nothing you can get out of this if you renovate. You have to completely tear it down and then start all over from the very beginning, because it has been very defective from the very beginning, from the foundation. So IPs is not something, that should be destined for university use. It is for university system, because of the peculiarity and the nature of the university system. You need something that is robust, something that answers to all of the issues, within the university system. And that is what the UTAS is all about. And they have done it and they have demonstrated it. And let me tell you, forget the propaganda that we are seeing in the past few days, that it failed integrity tests in this, it failed resilience tests, it failed this and that. Look, there was one of the tests that they are talking about 2 years or 3 years ago. The same government agency that is responsible for testing it, that says it failed some of these, resiliency tests and so on, gave it 85% pass mark. And then on one of the other indices, I can't remember exactly, Utah scored 77%. Now, when you are grading mark scores, these are high scores. But if you want to get 100%, for instance, or 95%, then it means that you have to also do one or two things to get it to that level. But don't also forget, perhaps the hidden hands in this assessment and the present, condemnation of Utah. Don't forget that the man in charge of information technology in the country, what's the minister now? I'll try and remember.
Pantami, Issa Pantami.
Good. Issa Patani has been embroiled in a controversy. He was given a professorship, I think, in one of the institutions, tertiary institutions in Owerri, in Imo State. And people have cried foul. People have said that the man was not deserving of it and that professorship should be withdrawn. ASUU set up a panel, an academic panel, to look into this, and found out that the whole process was fraudulently done, and that the man, Patani, was not deserving of that professorship. That there is nothing, he has nothing to show why he should be given a professorship. And ASUU, asked the university or the institution to withdraw it, and has promised to deal effectively with the people who engage in that act of brigandage by, giving Patani the professorship. Patani is the man responsible for, directly or indirectly responsible for assessing the UTAS that ASUU, an organization, a union that it is embroiled with controversially, that has already passed it before, that now comes back and tells us that it has failed all of these tests. So, an old African adage says that, the witch cried in the night and then the baby died in the daytime. For us Africans, it's obvious what has gone wrong, what has happened. So this is obviously there was a conflict of interest. So what did you expect?
Finally, because we're almost running out of time, where do you see public universities in Nigeria, considering the present impasse that we're having and between ASUU and the federal government? And what do you think is the solution to the precise actions?
You see, my brother, the country is not, Nigeria is not so much interested in education, and the country should be. If you had patriots running this country, they know that the most important, they will know automatically that the most important, sector of this country is education, because the future of Nigeria is dependent on it. So what I would expect really is for government to show determination this time around, to say, look, to have, a 5-year, 10-year program for education in the country, and to really do so much to invest in education. And then for the university system also, they also have to think out of the box too. I agree, and not by burdening Nigerians with excessive school fees. You cannot do that, because education now should be declared a state of emergency in the country. We need our children, we need Nigerians to be educated. You're not educating them for themselves and for their families. You're educating them for the entire country and for the society. So if you want to, push the frontiers of development and progress in this country, you must invest heavily in education. So what it also means is that government must come up with laws to ensure that any industry, foreign or local, that wants to carry out research, that wants to do certain things, must have to go through the university systems within their locality or within the country, so that they can adequately be funded. That is what we need. Some of these universities are going abroad to bring in, expertise and all of that. That must stop. So when you invest, when some of these, blue chip companies invest in research within the educational system and so on, they will improve the educational system at the tertiary level in this country. This is one way to go, and then they should also be innovative.